Steve Harvey asked a simple Family Feud question to a 19-year-old athlete in a wheelchair, but what happened next stopped the entire show. By the time it was over, there wasn't a dry eye in the studio, and Steve Harvey had witnessed what he would later call the greatest moment in Family Feud history. It was Friday, July 28th, 2023, during a regular Family Feud taping at the Atlanta studios. The Morrison family from Portland, Oregon was competing against the Chen family from Los Angeles, California. Both families had brought incredible energy to the show, and the audience was thoroughly entertained by the competitive back and forth. The Morrison family was led by their son, 19-year-old Jake Morrison, a former high school basketball star who sat in a wheelchair at the family podium. Jake had been reluctant to appear on the show, but his family had convinced him that getting out and doing something fun would be good for him. What the studio audience didn't know yet was that Jake was carrying a story that would soon change everyone's understanding of courage. From the moment Jake Morrison rolled onto the Family Feud stage, Steve Harvey noticed something different. At 19 years old, Jake had the build of an athlete, broad shoulders, strong arms, but he sat in a custom wheelchair with a cushioned back. His family stood protectively around him, his mother Karen, his father David, his younger sister Emma, and his younger brother Tyler. During the introductions, Jake had been quiet, letting his family do most of the talking. But when Steve walked over to formally meet the Morrison family, he could see the intelligence and determination in Jake's eyes. "Jake Morrison," Steve said warmly, extending his hand. "Tell me about yourself, young man." Jake shook Steve's hand firmly. "I'm 19, Mr. Harvey. I'm a freshman at the University of Oregon. Or, I was supposed to be before." He trailed off, gesturing to his wheelchair. Steve's expression became more serious. "Before what, Jake?" Jake's mother Karen stepped in gently. "Jake was one of the top high school basketball players in Oregon, Mr. Steve. He had a full scholarship to play Division I basketball. But 8 months ago, he was in a car accident." The studio audience made sympathetic sounds. Steve knelt down slightly to be at Jake's eye level. "I'm sorry to hear that, Jake. How are you doing now?" Jake managed a small smile. "I'm here, Mr. Steve. That's more than the doctors thought would happen." What Jake didn't say, what nobody in the studio knew yet, was that Jake had been told he would never walk again. The accident had caused severe spinal trauma. For 8 months, Jake had been in physical therapy, working harder than he'd ever worked at basketball, just to regain basic motor function. Coming to Family Feud had been his family's way of showing Jake that life could still be good, even from a wheelchair. The game proceeded normally. The Morrison family played well, with Jake contributing solid answers, despite clearly being uncomfortable with all the attention. Steve could see that Jake was different from most contestants. There was a heaviness to him, a sadness that even good answers and family encouragement couldn't quite hide. The game was close going into the final round. Fast money. Jake's father David went first and scored 178 points, leaving the family needing 22 points to win the $20,000. It was Jake's turn. Steve wheeled Jake over to the fast money podium himself, a gesture that made the audience smile. "All right, Jake. Your family needs 22 points. You ready?" Jake nodded. "Ready as I'll ever be, Mr. Steve." Steve began the fast money questions, and Jake's answers were quick and confident. "Name something an athlete does to stay motivated." "Set goals." 31 points. "Name a place people go to challenge themselves." "The gym." 28 points. "Name something you would fight for." "Your dreams." 44 points. Jake had accumulated 103 points, bringing the family total to 281. Well over the 200 needed to win. The family was already celebrating, and the audience was cheering. But Steve had 2 more questions to ask, and it was the 4th question that would change everything. Steve looked at his card, then at Jake. There was something in Steve's expression that made the celebration quiet down. "Jake," Steve said gently, "name something you would never give up on, no matter what." It seemed like a simple question, the kind of inspirational topic that Family Feud often used. The audience expected an answer like family, or your goals, or yourself. But Jake Morrison paused. His hands gripped the arms of his wheelchair tightly. His mother, standing nearby with the rest of the family, saw the change in his expression and took a step closer. Jake looked directly at Steve, his eyes filling with tears. "Walking," he said, his voice breaking. "I would never give up on walking again." The studio fell silent. There was something in the way Jake said it, the raw determination mixed with desperate hope, that made everyone understand this wasn't just a game show answer. Steve set down his cards and walked closer to Jake's wheelchair. "Jake, talk to me. What do you mean?" Jake's tears were flowing now, but his voice was steady. "Mr. Steve, 8 months ago, I was driving home from basketball practice. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit my car. I woke up in the hospital 3 days later, and the doctors told me I would never walk again." The studio audience gasped. Several people in the family section immediately started crying. "They said my spinal cord was damaged," Jake continued. "They said I should accept my new reality, get fitted for a permanent wheelchair, learn to live my life sitting down. They said I'd never play basketball again, never run, never even stand up on my own." Steve's eyes were filling with tears. "Jake, I'm so sorry." "But, Mr. Steve," Jake said, his voice growing stronger, "I've been in physical therapy every single day. For 8 months, 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. My therapist says I'm the most determined patient she's ever had. And 3 weeks ago, something happened." Jake looked at his family, and his mother nodded encouragingly, tears streaming down her face. "3 weeks ago, I felt my toes move," Jake said. "Just a tiny bit. The doctors said it might be a muscle spasm, nothing more, but I know what I felt. And if I can feel my toes, maybe I can feel my feet. And if I can feel my feet, maybe I can move my legs. And if I can move my legs," Jake's voice broke with emotion, "maybe I can walk again." Steve Harvey was crying openly now. The entire studio was silent except for the sound of people sobbing. "Jake, you are one of the bravest young men I have ever met," Steve said. "And I want you to know something. Whether you walk again or not, you're not defined by this wheelchair. You hear me? Your strength, your courage, your determination. That's who you are." Jake nodded, wiping his eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Steve. But I am going to walk again. I know everyone thinks I'm crazy. I know the doctors think I'm in denial, but I can feel it. I'm getting stronger every day, and I'm not giving up." What happened next was something nobody expected. Jake looked at his physical therapist, Dr. Sarah Chen, who was sitting in the audience. She had been crying along with everyone else, but when Jake made eye contact with her, she stood up. "Dr. Chen has been with me every day," Jake told Steve. "She's the one who believed me when I said I felt my toes move. She's been helping me work towards something we've been planning for weeks." Jake turned to his family. "Mom, Dad, can you help me?" Karen and David Morrison moved to either side of Jake's wheelchair. They looked at Steve, who was confused but nodded. "Jake, what are you doing?" Steve asked. "Mr. Steve," Jake said, his voice shaking but determined. "I've been working towards something. Dr. Chen said I might be ready. I wanted to try it somewhere that mattered, surrounded by people who would understand how important this is." Jake's parents carefully helped him shift forward in his wheelchair. Dr. Chen rushed onto the stage, along with Jake's siblings. The production crew didn't know whether to keep filming or stop, but Steve motioned for them to keep the cameras rolling. "Jake, you don't have to do anything," Steve said gently. "You've already shown us incredible strength." "Mr. Steve, I need to try," Jake said, "because if I don't try, I'll never know if I can." With his parents supporting his arms, Jake slowly, painfully, began to shift his weight forward. His legs were shaking uncontrollably. Dr. Chen was right beside him, monitoring his position, ready to catch him if he fell. The studio was completely silent. Over 200 people were holding their breath, watching this 19-year-old athlete attempt something his doctors said was impossible. Jake's face was contorted with effort. Sweat was pouring down his forehead. His entire body was trembling, but inch by inch, with his parents supporting most of his weight, Jake Morrison began to rise from his wheelchair. The audience began making sounds, gasps, cries, prayers. Steve Harvey had his hands clasped over his mouth, tears streaming down his face. "Come on, Jake," Steve whispered. "Come on, son." Jake's legs were shaking so badly it looked like they might give out at any second, but he kept pushing. His mother was crying, whispering encouragement in his ear. His father was holding him steady, his own face wet with tears. And then, for just a moment, maybe 5 seconds, maybe less. Jake Morrison was standing. His parents were still supporting him. Dr. Chen was right there ready to help, but Jake was on his feet. His legs were bearing weight. He was standing. The studio erupted. The audience was on their feet, screaming, crying, applauding. The Chen family, their competitors, rushed over to support Jake. Steve Harvey was sobbing, unable to speak. Jake's legs gave out, and his parents carefully lowered him back into his wheelchair. Jake was crying and laughing at the same time. "I did it," he kept saying. "I stood up. Did you see? I stood up." Dr. Chen was checking his vitals, tears running down her own face. "You did it, Jake. You stood up. I'm so proud of you." Steve Harvey walked over and knelt beside Jake's wheelchair. He took Jake's hand in both of his. "Jake Morrison, what you just did, that's not just standing up. That's showing every person in this studio and everyone watching at home what real courage looks like. That's showing us that when doctors say impossible, sometimes they're wrong." Jake looked at Steve, still crying. "Mr. Steve, I couldn't have done it without my family, without Dr. Chen, without believing that maybe, just maybe, I could prove everyone wrong." Steve stood up and addressed the audience and cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've hosted this show for years. I've seen thousands of families, but I have never seen anything like what we just witnessed." Jake Morrison just stood up. The doctors said he never would, and he just proved them wrong right here on this stage. Steve turned to Jake's parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, your son is extraordinary, and what you've done, supporting him, believing in him, bringing him here so he could try, that's what real family looks like." He looked at the Chen family, the competing family, and the Chen family. "Thank you for being here to witness this moment, because this isn't about our family versus your family anymore. This is about all of us supporting one young man who refused to accept impossible." Steve made an announcement that surprised everyone. "You know what? Both families win today. The Morrison family gets their $20,000, and so does the Chen family, because Jake just taught all of us something worth more than any prize money. He taught us that the only limits we have are the ones we accept." The studio gave another standing ovation that lasted nearly 5 minutes. Both families were crying, hugging each other, surrounding Jake in his wheelchair. When the episode aired 6 weeks later, the response was unprecedented. The clip of Jake standing up was viewed over 200 million times across all platforms within the first week, making it the most watched Family Feud moment in history. But more importantly, Jake's story inspired thousands of people with spinal injuries to push harder in their own recovery. Rehabilitation centers reported increases in patients' determination and effort. Doctors began reconsidering what they told patients about impossible. 3 months after the Family Feud episode, Jake Morrison appeared on Steve's talk show with an update that made Steve cry all over again. Jake walked onto the stage, slowly, with the help of forearm crutches and leg braces, but he walked. No wheelchair. Just Jake Morrison, walking. "Mr. Steve," Jake said when he reached Steve's chair, "I told you I would walk again." Steve stood up and hugged Jake for nearly a minute, both of them crying. "You did it, Jake. You actually did it." Jake's appearance on the talk show sparked the creation of the Jake Morrison Never Give Up Foundation, which provides financial assistance for intensive physical therapy to spinal injury patients who can't afford it. The foundation's motto, taken from Jake's Fast Money answer, is, "Never give up on your dreams, no matter what." Steve Harvey became the foundation's first major donor and serves on its board of directors. Today, Jake Morrison is a sophomore at the University of Oregon. He walks with forearm crutches and will likely need them for the rest of his life. He'll never play Division I basketball like he once dreamed, but he's studying to become a physical therapist so he can help other people fight for their recovery, the way Dr. Chen helped him fight for his. "Basketball was my first dream," Jake says, "but helping other people stand up, helping them fight for what doctors say is impossible. That's my new dream. And honestly, it's better." The Family Feud episode featuring Jake Morrison has been viewed over 300 million times, making it the most watched game show moment in internet history. But the views don't tell the real story. The real story is in the thousands of letters from people with spinal injuries who said Jake's courage gave them hope. The real story is in the rehabilitation centers that now use Jake's video to inspire their patients. The real story is in the lives changed by the Never Give Up Foundation. Jake Morrison went on Family Feud to help his family win $20,000. What he actually did was show millions of people that impossible is just an opinion, not a fact. That determination can overcome diagnosis. That sometimes the greatest victories don't look like returning to exactly who you were. They look like becoming someone even stronger than you imagined. Steve Harvey asked a simple question about never giving up. Jake Morrison gave an answer and then proved it with every ounce of strength he had. And in that moment, on a game show stage in front of 200 people, a 19-year-old athlete taught the world that standing up is never just about your legs. It's about your heart refusing to quit. If this incredible story of determination and courage moved your heart, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that impossible is just an opinion. Have you ever proved someone wrong about what you could accomplish? Let us know in the comments.